Happy Friday, guys. I'm Vanessa.
I'm Eliana. You can say happy Friday.
My things are every Friday. Happy Friday.
Oh, you're fucking right.
We are your Vibe Tribe,
A place for the girls.
Join us every Friday where we talk about relationships, dating,
pop culture, and absolute randomness. Hey guys, happy Friday. It's Eliana.
Hey guys, happy Friday. It's Vanessa. Hope everyone's week went really well.
So I don't have a drink of the week today because it's actually a Tuesday that we're recording this pod. So stay tuned for next week. I promise I will have a drink of the week, even though I was this close to getting a drink. It was literally 2 seconds away, but I am drinking a sparkling water this time. Sorry.
I feel that. I was really about to get a drink as well because it's just been really rough, Tuesdays. I'm like wishing it was Friday. But here we are.
I'm so excited for today's pod because I feel like the story is going to give me all the energy I need for the rest of the week. So I'm really excited. So I want to introduce my friend Maria. I feel like I've known her for forever and we're still friends. So it's a long time since like high school. So I'm going to bring her on.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm Maria. Hi. Like Eliana said, we go way back. I've known her since we were like 14. It's been a journey ever since, but she's the freaking best. A little bit about me. What do I say? I'm 26. I live in St. Pete, but I've kind of been all over the place. I was born in Brazil originally. I moved to the US when I was 6. So that's me. I like to do some writing. I'm a big fan of working out, and I'm pretty much always on the beach. So those are like, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
I love it.
And me just putting in my 2 cents already because you love writing. If you ever want to write for my blog, if you ever want to like put your voice out there, I would love to have you come on just because it's all about like empowering women and all of that. And, just writing like anything that, can help or any kind of, viewpoints that you have in life or, tips, tricks, whatever it is. So if you're into that, definitely let me know.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I would absolutely love to. That sounds amazing. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I love that this is your first time meeting Maria because I feel like me and Maria have a friendship. Like it goes way back and we don't talk very often, but I feel like when we do, it's like it's the same as before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, those are the best friendships. I always say that. I'm like, those are the best friendships when you like don't have to talk every day, but when you do catch up, it's like no time has passed. It's like you're just like so in sync. And I have friends like that. Like I could literally like just for example, like my friend Frances that I always talk to you about, my other Gemini friend. It's literally the same thing. Like we talk and it's like as if nothing, like no time has passed. And she's also like I've known her forever, so it's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's how it always feels is like whenever one of us is in town or like we're, there for the weekend, I'll just like text her and be like, hey, oh my God, let's hang out. And we do. And it's the same. It's like we just saw each other yesterday, which is the best.
So one of my friends heard the first episode of me describing like what it takes for me to actually like let you in my life and be my friend. And like you are that representation because literally I feel like you're such a badass bitch. And like I was telling Vanessa, I'm like, that's why I wanted to bring you on because I'm like, you're just such like one of those women that's like very powerful. Like you have such a presence and like I feel like you're like you know exactly who you are and that's hard to find. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
I'm gonna cry. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. And oh my gosh, it's so funny because I literally feel the same way about you. You're literally like, not to like turn this into like a gush fest, but seriously, like you're just such an example of being like confident and comfortable in your skin. And like, I just think you're so amazing. So hearing you say that is like warms my heart so much. Thank you.
I just have a question, because I would love to know because I'm that person that like asks people this all the time. I'm like, what's your zodiac sign?
Here's the thing. I don't know too much about zodiac, but I know a little bit because my sister-in-law and my cousin are both super into it. So I'm an Aries, and I feel like the story I'm going to tell is a very Aries story from the things I have heard, but I personally don't know too much about it.
Great. So I'm a Sagittarius, so you're also a fire sign, so we mesh very well.
Love that.
We're off to a great start.
Amazing. Love that.
That means the vibes for this podcast are going to be fabulous.
Yes, I already feel it.
All right, so obviously we brought you on because you have a juicy story to tell. She did DM us, guys. She DM'd the Vibe Tribe. So yeah, I mean, I feel like let's just set the mood of the story. This is like back in, I don't even know what year it is.
Oh my God, it was.
Damn it, I should have looked it up.
I was thinking about this earlier because I was like, I think it was definitely 2015 because it was the summer before junior year of college. I know that for sure. So summer before our junior year of college, around 2015. Like that's the setting.
I love that. The setting, very party mode. We were just living our best life. I remember, I like slightly remember this story. So I feel like I'm going to have like a first reaction of you telling it again.
I love that. But oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to set the stage just a little bit because I feel like it's relevant to the story. In high school, and Eliana can attest to this probably more than anyone else, I was a very different person than I was in college. I was extremely academic, extremely like just, I don't think goal-oriented is the right word because I've always been that way, but I was very set on a specific kind of goal, which was like going to a really great school, having this like high-powered career and just like following that path through my life. So academics were a huge part of who I was and kind of defined me. And I got into a really great school for college. I got into Barnard, which is one of the colleges at Columbia. So it was like everything I worked for like came to fruition. I was having this amazing time, like thriving academically. Socially, the school wasn't exactly my vibe. But long story short, Columbia is extremely expensive. And my parents and I could not afford to keep me there the entire time. And I barely qualified for like any aid. So I had to leave halfway through my sophomore year, despite like doing really well academically there. And that kind of like threw me for a huge existential crisis because suddenly everything I worked for and got taken away and it felt horrible at the time. Now as an adult, I have a very different perspective. But so just like picture me at like 20 or 21, full on existential crisis, no idea who I am, like trying to figure myself out, trying to navigate relationships, friendships, like, you know, going through it in many ways. So it's the summer, and that summer I was just like, you know, I've committed 20 years of my life to academics. I want to have fun and just like explore my life and be a normal college kid. So I was also in like, I don't know, looking back now, I was just like, I was just so immature in so many ways. And it's so funny as an adult to have this perspective. But at the time I was kind of like on the rebound, like wanted to just like meet new people. So a friend of mine who's also like a mutual friend with Eliana, I don't know if she would want me to like put her on blast. I'm going to give her like a code name. I don't know.
Fake name.
Fake name. I'm going to call her Jane because I don't know a Jane. So she sets me up with a guy who she knew from college. And I was like, great, love this. Like, so we had these plans to hang out. So this is the setting. It's summer, which if you know Florida, you know, it's like pouring rain every single night. And he lived at UCF, which was like 45 minutes away from where I lived with my parents that summer. So I was like, okay, I'm living with my parents. My parents are pretty chill, so I don't know why I did this, but I was like, they can't know like that I'm going to hang out with a guy at like 10 o'clock at night. Like, I don't want to have that conversation with them. So I told them I was hanging out with Jane. I forgot her name for a second, her code name.
You're like, wait, what was her fake name?
I was like, okay. So I tell them that and I go, and she and I actually do hang out for like an hour, but then I'm like, hey, like I'm going to go hang out with him. I'll let you know how it goes. Great. Wonderful. I get into my 2008 Suzuki that hasn't had an oil change in probably like 3 years. It doesn't lock. Like the locks are jammed from the outside, so I can't ever lock that car. Like just to give you an idea of how this car is. But I'm like literally blasting my music, and I look at my phone and I'm like, oh shit, my phone's on like 5%. So I literally text the guy and I was like, hey, don't text me. Like I can't waste any more battery. I need to use my map to get there. I'll see you when I get there. Wonderful. So I'm literally keep driving in silence now, using my map, living my best life in this storm. So like trying to be really cautious when all of a sudden, as I'm going 65 down 417, which is a major highway, my windshield wipers just stop working. Literally just stop. And I was like, what? No.
Oh my God.
Luckily for me, like a higher power is looking out for your girl, because there was no one around, like no other cars. So I like was really proud of how calm I stayed, because I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Immediately brake, like gradually brake. It wasn't crazy, but I pull off into the shoulder, and I'm like, okay, this car is full of surprises. Maybe like it's a fluke. Let me just park for a second, like turn the car off, back on. It's going to work. Like you turn it off, you turn it back on. That's how it goes. So
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm
solid plan.
So I turn off the car, I turn it back on. I'm like, okay, it's time. Like windshield wipers on, nothing. So that's where I'm like, oh shit. Because at this point, I'm halfway down the highway. So I'm literally like 20 minutes away from home, 20 minutes away from this guy's place. So like I'm stuck in the middle of this highway. My phone's on like 3% battery. My wipers aren't working, and it's still like downpour. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do? I was like, who do I call? Like, I don't want to call the police. Like, who do you call in that scenario? And I think I was in such like a hyper focused panic mode that the only person I could think of to call was another friend, who was my friend Erin. And I don't think she'll care if I say her name in this.
No.
But I literally call Erin, and I'm like, Erin, tell me what to do. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I called her, but she was the only person I could think of. So she's like, because I think it's like, she's such a like strong like person who like always figures things out. So I was like, that's what I need right now in this moment where I'm losing my shit. She's like, Maria, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be fine. You're going to pull off in an exit, like, because there was an exit like a quarter mile away from me. So she's like, just use the shoulder, like put your hazards on, pull out into this exit and find the nearest gas station. See if they have a phone or a place that like you can buy a charger, charge your phone, and then figure it out from there. But if that's not possible, girl, you know those like wiper things that you use to clean the windshield for your car when you're at a gas station? She was like, take one of those and try to make it home. And I was like, sounds like a plan. That's the plan I need.
Oh my God.
So like as an adult, thinking about this story and like the series of choices that I made, I'm like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, why did I do this? I think in the moment I was in such like, I need to figure this out survival mode that I was like, this is what I need to do. So at that point I was like, okay, I abandoned like the idea of hanging out with this guy. I was like, sorry, like if I have to choose between this guy's place and my house, I'm going back home. Like, no.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't wait out this storm because my phone's dying. Like my parents are going to freak out if I'm not home at like 6, 7 a.m. And I can't like just be here without a phone in the middle of this highway. Like that's so dangerous. So is everything I did next. But like in my head, those just weren't options. So I pull off, and thankfully like the rain lets up a little bit. I pull off. It's still like raining a little bit, but I make it into a gas station, which like things lined up perfectly so that it was really close to me. So I pull off into this gas station. And of course, it's one of those gas stations that like doesn't have a convenience store. It's like one of those tiny little like bodegas, but it was closed.
So
there's no one in there. And I was like, fuck. So I literally do that. I go to the thing where you like clean your window, and I low-key steal this like window wiper handheld thing. And I'm like, all right, like I'm going to make it back home. My wipers just like wouldn't work. So I literally roll down my window and I like stick my arm out with this wiper thing. And I'm like manually wiping the front windshield of my car, like in front of my face so that I can see in front of me. And like, I was going to like hang out with this guy who was super cute. I had my hair all done, makeup, like cute leather jacket. So literally like half my face is sticking out of my car and like trying to look through my windshield, wiping this thing as it's raining all over me. I literally turn around, get back on the highway, I turn on my hazards, and I go 15 miles an hour back home. And the entire time, I'm like, I just need to hold it together. Like, I need to hold this together. I'm fine. Thank goodness, like, there were no cars. I don't think I would have done this if there were cars because that's just insanity. But yeah, so I literally drove back home and it took me like almost an hour to get home going that slow, manually windshield wiping my own fucking car, like looking through it. So by the
Oh
time
my God.
I will never forget this. It was the John Young exit off of 417. And it's like you have to like turn like this super sharply. So I'm going at like 5 miles an hour at this point, turning. I finally get off. I make it into a gas station that was open. And literally, like, I park my car and I just drop the thing, like, on the ground, like the wiper thing. And I look in the mirror and it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, half of my face is just like, my makeup is running down my face. My hair is like disgusting. My jacket is so wet. The entire interior of my car is soaked. And I was just like, all right, I go in and there's this like maybe like 15, 16-year-old kid at the register of this gas station. And I was just like, do you have a phone charger? Like about to cry. And he looks at me like, what the fuck happened to this girl? Like, is she good? So he literally lets me use his phone charger. Like, I don't even have to buy one. I charge my phone. I call my dad and I'm still holding on to the lie. I'm like, Dad, Jane and I are hanging out and my windshield wipers broke and I had to drive a few miles back home. Like, please come pick me up. Help. Like, come and get me at this gas station. And then as soon as my dad showed up, I like just start bawling. He's like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong? You only drove a couple miles. And I was like, I know, but it was so scary, like freaking out. So yeah, that's what happened to me when I tried to just hang out with a guy summer before junior year of college. And it was kind of traumatizing. But I still ended up hooking up with him down the line. It's fine. Like, it's a happy ending. But yeah, that's my life.
I was going to say, did you get the D? But that story would have been all for nothing.
Not that night by any means. But after that happened, I was like, no, I have to. Like, I worked too hard. Like, this is way too much.
I have to go full circle.
Dude, for real. So traumatizing. Like, looking back now as an adult, I'm like, what a stupid series of events. I can't believe I did that. But way to problem solve, you know, in my own way.
Honestly, I'm like traumatized for you. I can't even speak. Like, I'm literally traumatized for you because in that moment, I'm like the worst at like problem solving when like crazy shit is happening to me. I'm not even lying to you guys. Like, I call my dad. I'm like, solve my problem. Like, fix my life right now. Like, that's my first thing. And it's funny that you really called your dad. Like, everyone, I feel like girls especially, I don't know if this is like for everyone, like let me know if it's not, but I feel like our instinct is always like call our dads. Like, we're never like call our moms, like, you know, for that kind of stuff. I feel like that would literally be me. I'd be on the like pulled over, be like, Dad, like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, freaking out. And literally, I don't even know. I can't believe you went through that. It's crazy.
I just can't believe it. And I can't believe my like stupid mentality of like not wanting to tell my parents where I was. Like, they wouldn't have cared. They would have just been like, yeah, we're glad you're fine. Like, it's just so dumb. But back then, that was my thought process.
That's insane. I literally would have freaked out, especially me. I have like no GPS, like, or sense of direction. Like, if my phone would have died, I would have been fucked. Like, I would have just been in the car, like, okay, I don't know where I'm going, but I guess I just got to follow these signs. That's actually so scary because, like, if it was nighttime, it was like dark.
Yeah.
That's like actually so scary. Like, it's funny, but it's really not. Like,
like, it's funny because I'm fine, but like now thinking about it, I'm like, that was so dangerous and scary. Like, the amount of things that lined up for me to be safe is absolutely insane. Like, the fact that it was 417, but maybe 2 cars passed me the whole time. Like, the fact that stupid ass technique I came up with actually worked. Yeah. So it was just insane.
Shout out to Erin.
Saving my life since freaking like 2009.
That is so petrifying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're okay and that you're here.
Thank you so much. Me too.
That you survived. I feel like I also wanted to bring you on because, well, it's funny that you bring like your whole writing thing and stuff. I completely forgot that you're a writer. I can't with you right now. Vanessa I just want to expose her real quick because she just brought out a massive sandwich. Is that a McDouble that you're eating over there?
Why do you think that I would ever be eating McDonald's at my mother's house?
Oh, true. I forgot that's where you're at. McDoubles are fire. I also, guys, just to let you know, McDoubles in California taste better than the ones in Florida. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I swear to you, it's different.
I believe it, honestly. Full believe it. Popeyes, when I went to Popeyes in Washington, it was life-changing. Like, it was completely different.
I'm sure it is because they probably use real chicken.
Yeah.
Whereas everything in Florida is like pink mush that's molded into something.
So my dogs are always barking, so I keep like trying to mute myself. But I'm actually eating a Cuban sandwich is what it looks like and tastes like.
But no, I just wanted to preface this by saying that yes, Maria, you are a completely different person. Like it's so funny. Like I wish I could have like your high school self and like your current self like next to each other, because it's just like like you're you. And that's what I was trying to message you. I was like, you're still you, but you're not. You're like, it's just so crazy because I've known you for so long that like even the last time that we hung out, I was like, I just feel like you're just so like free. I don't know. I like felt that vibe off of you, that you're just like living your life and you're just letting it flow. And I feel like a lot of people would learn from you.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear. I really appreciate that. I think honestly, like looking back at high school me versus me now, it's like night and day. I think that's naturally just part of growing up. But also I think with me specifically, like what I touched on earlier of having worked so hard for something that I thought was like all I wanted. And it's almost more impactful to have gotten it. Like I think for example, like if I'd worked that hard, but I never got into the college of my dreams and like never went, I kind of never would have known, and I would have followed a very different life's path. And I probably would have been very similar to the way I was back then still in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But I think the fact that I lived it and experienced it and saw the reality of what having all of those things meant, and then like had it not work out, ended up being honestly one of the biggest blessings in my life in a way. And I never would have believed you if you had told me that when it was happening. But mm-hmm. I think like having gone, like, because it was such a big deal to me. And I think it's really amazing now because I see younger people like my brother and like all these kids on TikTok, like talking about how college isn't it and it's not that big of a deal and you can choose to have other paths for your life. I think even when we were 17, 18, it was a really different conversation, at least for me, especially in like the program we were in and like just the mentality that all of us had around us. But like, for me, college was never something I questioned, but more importantly, like going to an Ivy League school and having all of that happen. And then I went and I was like, okay, academically, like still one of the best experiences of my life because I love learning. I love school. It was beautiful in that sense. But like in terms of the culture and the level of stress and anxiety that everyone had and just like the reality of being there day to day, of going from a super diverse high school where like I was one of the whitest people there and I'm Brazilian, to a place where literally even looking like me was extremely rare and like the socioeconomic status was very different. Like going into an environment like that, it was already a bit of a culture shock and already not the right fit for me. But then like still having it kind of be taken away, not on my terms, was something that took me a long time to deal with. But ultimately having that happen was incredible for me and taught me a lot about like what to expect from yourself versus what to actually do to make you happy, you know?
Honestly, like I like relate to that so much because I feel like I'm still like on the journey to like find out what fulfills me, but I'm still like searching for it. You know what I mean? And I think like even me too in high school, like my mindset, I mean, I think also, I mean, being an immigrant and just always having your parents tell you like, I mean, I knew my mom couldn't afford to like pay for my college. So I was like, I have to get into college and like, I have to do this. And then I feel like I was always like, it's funny. I talk to my mom now and I'm like, you were always wanting for me to be a doctor. And she's like, I never told you that. And I just like in my own head, I was like, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to be a lawyer or I have to be a doctor or I have to be something like an engineer or something like that, that it's like I have to be successful and make a lot of money. And I was like, I never told you that. And I was like, I just like ingrained that into my brain that that's like what I had to do. And then it took me also a long time to realize like I feel like if you do anything, just do it with intention, but it doesn't have to be what the like the normal path is, right? Like you can make your own path and still like feel fulfilled in life.
1,000,000% could not agree more. That was me. I was like, I have to be a lawyer. Like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And it's funny because I was really into theater in high school. So I had this like moment of wondering like, oh, what if I just studied acting? And then literally like, I remember having a conversation with my parents about it. And my parents told me like, well, if you want to study acting, then you should try for like Juilliard. Like you should try to go to the best acting school because you can do it. And they were so like, they believed in me. Like they were never pressuring me to be a certain thing. But in my head, I was like, no, like they've worked so hard for everything I have. I've worked so hard. Like I need to be a lawyer. I need to be this, this, and this because that's what success means. And like, I just don't believe that at all anymore. And having to have my entire like frame of thinking rewired so early on at like 19 or 20 really was the catalyst for changing my perspective on that completely, you know?
And so just curious, like on all of that, because I mean, obviously I agree, you know, I grew up with obviously like Spanish parents. So, you know, I definitely got the pressure side of everything, you know, but like, where are you now? Like, where are you like living? Like, tell me like, what's your day to day now? What are you doing? Like work and all that? Cause I don't know like anything.
For sure. Yeah.
True.
So I'm living in St. Pete right now. I actually just moved back to Florida. My husband and I were in Washington for a year and a half.
I still can't get over that. Sorry.
I didn't have like a big wedding. We eloped. It's a whole thing. Like, yeah, like again, if I told my high school self all of this, like she'd be like, who are you?
First of all, I love the idea that you literally eloped. Like I feel like that might be like a fire sign thing. I'm going to do some research because honestly, I feel like that would be me. Like that has to be me.
100%. And
Love
it's
that.
funny because like, I always thought I would want this like super big fancy wedding and like to have the moment. And then he like never cared about any of that stuff. But like for me, it's just more like the amount of money it would take to do that. I was just like, I could spend $30,000 on a wedding and like finance a lot of it because I don't have 30 grand in cash to just pay that. Or I could save up for a house and like travel and have life experiences. And like, I'm not knocking anybody who wants to have a wedding because I think they're beautiful. I literally love weddings, like love them so much. But the idea of having one for myself was just never a thing that I like cared too much about. But right now, sorry, tangent. But right now,
it'll happen. So
I'm living in St. Pete. We did end up buying a house that like with the intention is to live here and like do some work on it and eventually flip it. He's a real estate agent. So like that was really the reason we came back. That and my job is in St. Pete. It's amazing. I work in marketing. So I do content and operations. I work for a startup and it's just like local businesses mostly are our clients. It's really community driven, like super sweet. Everyone I work with is just like incredible. So I'm working in marketing in a leadership role at this company that I love and like living in St. Pete, which is probably the only place in Florida that I would want to live, honestly, because of the beach and like the culture and the vibe here is so great.
It's really cool.
But yeah, that's kind of where I am now. Who would have thought?
So different. But that's why I wanted to bring you on because I feel like hopefully there'll be, you know, I feel like impressionable people who will listen to this, and particularly like women is what we're trying to build a community on. And I feel like a lot of times like we envision, I mean, not everyone, but I feel like some people like they just get stuck in their heads and it's like, it's miserable sometimes when you're so like focused on like, I have to do this, and this is where I have to end up, that you aren't even enjoying your life. You're just like going through all the motions and it's so depressing.
100%.
Like,
yes. Yeah. Like, and it becomes extremely easy, I think, to assign a lot of your identity to that. And that's something that I had to kind of reckon with in my life was like, for pretty much all of like the formative years of my life, I assigned who I was to my accomplishments in like a really specific way, like mostly academically, but like I was like the smart kid. I wasn't gifted. I always did well in school.
She was though.
Like
Maria's so smart. I remember.
I say smart in quotations because smart is completely fucking subjective. But my kind of smart happened to be academically inclined, and that's something that people celebrate a lot. So my whole life, that was what I heard. And like that was who I was. And getting into like a fancy ass school felt like a validation of that. And getting it taken away, like, yeah, it was through no fault of my own, but it felt like an invalidation of that. So I was left like right after that experience, even in that summer where that story happened, like, and for years afterward, I was left really lost and feeling like I had no idea who I was, because suddenly I didn't have all of these external things that like told me I was smart, and I had to believe it kind of standing alone on my own. And I didn't know how to do that. And so like, I think having been such a perfectionist for so long, I like, part of me really wanted to explore my identity outside of that and like party and have relationships and like be a normal person. But part of me felt guilty for doing those things because it was so at odds with the identity that I thought I had to be. So like, I was so just going through it for like pretty much junior year of college was like me dealing with that and like having to figure out who the hell I was away from that. And I think I clung to like a lot of like friendships and relationships and things that made me feel like I could have some sort of control over like the person that I used to be. But I was probably the least myself I've ever been at that period because I felt so lost. And I think that happens to a lot of people. Like if you assign your identity to something external, it can always get taken away. And if it does, you're kind of left wondering like, who am I? And it's a really scary thought to have, but it's kind of necessary in order to find out who you are, you know?
I feel like that is so, first of all, empowering. Second of all, I feel like a blog can literally be written on that, because I know, honestly though, because I feel like even like myself, and I feel like so many people struggle with that, especially like coming out of like school, or like just in that like middle part of, you know, of like their mid 20s, like, you know, late 18s or, you know, kind of in that range, because we're brought up to think, you know, a certain way because of, you know, society or your parents. And, you know, then you have, let's say, baby boomers as parents, which is a whole other thing in itself. And then, you know, you're like basically told how to act, you know, what you should be doing, like where you should be going to school, what you should be pursuing. Like, you're just told, like, we don't think for ourselves. We don't make choices for ourselves. And then when we get thrown out into the world, we literally are like questioning everything. It's like, who am I? What do I like? Because you don't even know, because you're not given the freaking time to explore, like, what is it that I like? People don't sit with themselves, and that's so important. Like, you need to freaking like sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, what is it that I like? Do I like to do this? Do I not like to do this? Forget about everyone else. Forget about forget about your parents. I don't even care. Like, I'm literally saying, like, forget about your parents, forget about siblings, anyone that is like hindering you, and just do things for you, and like, don't even care about anyone else. And I feel like it's easy to say, but it's hard to do for a lot of people. So I feel like that is something that should be, you know, brought to light more and talked about more, because it just honestly really fucks with your head. Like, it really, really does.
100%. Like, I could not agree more. And it's funny because I so agree with everything you said. And it made me think of something that like Pete, my husband, and I were talking about recently, which is like, it's so common. And like, I'm 26, we're in our mid 20s. It's so common to hear people say like, oh, I'm getting so old. I feel so old. And it's like, we are so young. We have so much time left. And I think we're really inclined to have that mentality, because by 26, you feel like you've done so much. Like, you've dedicated years and years of your life to the schooling system and to like starting your career. And like, we get fed so many images in the media of people who are like hyper successful at like 18, 19. So by the time you're in your mid 20s, you're like, oh, it's over for me. Like, when I was 10, I thought that by 25, I was going to be like a CEO of a company, like a millionaire or some shit. Like, I thought like that was it, but that's not reality. Like, that's not life. And we are still so young. I was thinking about it and putting it into perspective, because one of like my best childhood friends just graduated med school and is like being a bad bitch. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that
I can relate to her. She's like known her whole life, like what she wants, and she just did it.
And it's incredible. Like, I love people who are like that, and I'm so happy for that. But I'm like, just putting into perspective, like the amount of time it takes to go to college, then, you know, like pre-med, then med school, then do a residency. I was like, that's 12 years. That's insane. Like, I couldn't do that. And then I was like, wait, I'm 26. I could literally go back to college from scratch, do that, and still be a full-ass doctor before I'm 40. And you're still super young then. Like, we are so young, and I think just having examples like that helps to put it into perspective a little bit, because it's easy to think like, well, this is my life. Like, this is it. I'm going. And I hate that mentality. Like, no, you can change your life at any point.
Anytime.
I
can't see when you're going to talk because you're like a floating head right now.
I'm sorry. I'm
Turn on the lights.
I don't even have lights here. Actually, do I? Let me see. I don't know.
Such a creepo. She's just in the dark.
Light.
Now it's even more creepy. I'm just kidding.
Really, listen. I'm in my parents' house. I can't do it all. But what I was gonna say is, I feel like, I mean, at least for me, it was my parents mostly that made it seem like if you didn't have your life together by the time you graduated, like, it was that pressure, like that constant pressure of like, you need to have it figured out, you need to do this. And it might be because they come from, other like countries. Like, for example, my parents, my mom's like from Venezuela, my dad's from Spain, but they grew up in Venezuela, but it's like they have a different mentality there. And probably Eliana can talk about this too. Like, everyone there is literally a lawyer or like a doctor or like something. So like they grow up seeing that. So then they try to embed that into their kids, and it's like, we live in a totally different place. Like, it's not that, like, people aren't having kids like at 16 or at 17, like, and it's crazy because when I was a kid, like, I would have that pressure and I'd be like, well, I'm going to be married by 23. I'm going to have my first kid at like 24, 25. Like, I had this like whole plan in my head because I felt like that's what I had to have. Like, I needed to have a drawn out plan of exactly what my life would be like. And I felt like that was the moment in my life where, first of all, probably my anxiety stemmed from. Second of all, probably felt the least myself. Is that the right English? I don't even know.
Yeah, you didn't feel like you were you.
Yeah, like, I didn't feel like myself at all. And then, and I also felt very lost because when I didn't get things like you were saying, like when they didn't happen for me, I was like, holy shit, like, I put my entire, like, who I am into these external things, and then I'm not getting validated. So now why do I feel like a failure? And it's like, we can't put all of our, like, who we are into these external things that we can't control life. Like, me and Eliana talk about this shit all the time because it happens to me. I've said it a million times. I'm a control freak. So when things don't work out for me, like, like I spiral because we're taught from when we're little to think that way. And it's like, no, like, you need to take a step back, like, take a breath. Like, it's okay if it's not going to matter in 5 years, like, it's not important, and I feel like that's something that really does need to be talked about more.
Completely agree. Like, it's funny because I think there was a previous episode where you were like talking about having anxiety, and I related so hard to that.
You listen to us?
Yes, girl, of course. In my car, like, yes. But yeah, like, I related so hard to that because I was so similar. Like, my entire life, I dealt with my anxiety by just like pushing forward and like channeling it all into what I thought was like supposed to be the accomplishments I was working toward. And like, I think that was another layer on top of like having it taken away was like, oh, so my anxiety is valid. Like, see, the worst case scenario can happen. And it kind of made me double down on being a control freak. And it can be a really toxic sort of relationship because for me, like, when I'm anxious, a lot of it is like worst case scenario thinking and feeling like I'm trying to prepare for it when the worst case scenario happens, or when my idea of that happens, it almost validates that thought process. Cause it's like, oh, like, I knew that would happen. So a lot of like my 20s so far has been trying to just like undo that thought process and realize like things are going to happen, bad things are going to happen, amazing things are going to happen. And most of the time, like, things that are neither here nor there are going to happen. And that's life. And you have to take it in stride. Like, it's so hard because I'm such a control freak too. But I really try to like force myself into situations that might make me a little uncomfortable because that's where growth happens. And it's really easier said than done. But I think it's really important for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I tell Vanessa, I know it was really hard for her to like open up about her anxiety. Even my mom literally called me and was like, I relate so much to Vanessa. I was like, I didn't even know you had anxiety. I was like, what? Like, I'm like, and it's like, there's so many people that like relate to that. And like, I mean, I don't have anxiety as like intense like that, but it still affects my life, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, especially life, dude. You cannot even talking to my mom, that's why I like to talk to, no, she's going to kill me, but older people, because it's like, you hear their lives and you're just like you cannot prepare for any of that. You cannot prepare for life. It's just going to happen and you have to flow with it, or it's going to still take you. You know what I mean? So you can go limb and just let it take you, or you're just going to it's going to be rough for you. You know what I mean? So yeah, you just, I feel like for those kind of things, you just sometimes have to, take it as it comes and let it happen.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
Because I think it was yesterday I actually had this moment of realization, because it happens to me very frequently. But I was thinking, because I felt so overwhelmed for 2 minutes just with everything that was happening in my life. And then I was thinking back and I'm like, who am I? Because 5 years ago, I was literally in dual enrollment, right? And I had 7 classes. It was something crazy. And then not even that, when I was in college in UCF, I was literally still working full time, 2 hours south of UCF, and then driving to UCF twice a week, and then still going to the gym at 9 o'clock at night, and then doing it over the next day. And I'm like, I was this crazy person that just balanced everything. And I'm like, who am I that I can't now the smallest things, I'm like, oh my God, this is too much. I just can't. I'm my anxiety just I'm like, what happened between that period to this period where now it's just crazy. And I feel also though, when you're younger, me, just in retrospect, thinking, in those times, I felt that one, I couldn't really talk about my anxiety. I didn't even know to the degree of what my anxiety was at that time. Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I was probably not even, shedding any light into it. I was kind of just ignoring it. And then I had, my parents and my family held me to such high expectations that it was I had no time to feel what I was feeling. So
you just go.
Yeah, it was a very go. And that's the kind of, life that I was used to. And so when things changed and I graduated and I'm at a normal job, and it's just kind of settling, and then you start feeling pressure again. It's what the hell is happening right now? You just don't know how to deal with it. It's the craziest thing. I just had that kind of moment yesterday when I was just thinking about it all.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Something that's weirdly helped me with it, and this is taken years, but something that's helped me where I have arrived at now in terms of career anxiety, who am I, what am I doing with my life, all of that is asking myself, I think what is my ideal life? Because I think for so long growing up, we're asked what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And that's the lens that we define ourselves through. Even little things, when you guys said introduce yourself, the first thing I thought of was oh, my work. And
how old you are.
I love my work. I truly do. I'm very fortunate to be in a company that I love, but that's only a tiny part of my identity. Most of it isn't that. And when I think about my dream life, sure, there's a purpose in having a career that you love, and that's amazing. And it's varying degrees for various people. But when I think about my dream life, I think about traveling and writing and reading new books and experiencing art and meeting new people. And that's the life I want to live. So why would I spend most of my time worrying about something that isn't even that factored into my picture of the best life I can live, And that really helped me put it into perspective. And it isn't a fix all. I still get anxious about stuff, but that really helps for sure.
Right.
You're definitely right. Now that you're saying that, I feel that's a very big thing to kind of look at. I feel perspective honestly is everything.
Yeah.
If you can just take a moment, this is kind of what they do with me at therapy. She's when you get these thoughts and you start having these racing thoughts, take a step back and just make yourself present. Because when we have that anxiety, we're no longer in the present time. We're freaking thinking ahead, all the shit that's about to happen. What we think 20 different scenarios of what, just so you have to just take a step back and just become present, forget about what's actually happening and think about okay, what is it that I'm feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Acknowledge your feelings, and now let's make a new narrative, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's
So easy.
what'd you say?
I said it's so easy.
Boom, just like that.
But I think, but that's powerful though. Like the fact that there is a way to do it. We just have to do it.
Yeah. Ugh, isn't that life? There's a way. You just have to do it.
If there's a will, there's a way. It's
I love
crazy.
that though. I feel like that is such a good way too, though, of kind of seeing your life instead of seeing like what you're gonna do. And again, going back to my therapy sessions, because this is literally me. When we have the therapy session, like she'll ask me, like what is it that you want to do with your life, but not in that sense. It's like what fulfills you, and so you start from that, right? And then okay, so if this fulfills you, then what can you do, that will help you with that? But it's like we always get so stuck on the actualness of like what we're trying to do versus like, okay, like for example, for me, like I want to empower women. So okay, so like how can I can empower women in in a multitude of ways, right? So I shouldn't be focused on, okay, is it gonna be through my blog, is it gonna be through a podcast? Like it's gonna come, but I need to stick with the whole idea that my goal, in my life is to empower women, and I should lead a life that, like supports that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's amazing to have that realization. I feel like that's the hardest part is like, what's my purpose? What do I feel inspired by? So knowing that is amazing. And knowing that that can change too. That was another thing I always thought is like, this is what I chose and that's it. But it's like, no, you have life is the longest thing you're ever going to do. You can change your mind. It's okay.
Going back to everything too, like growing up, you were kind of frowned upon if you like changed your mind.
Yes.
I don't know for you guys.
Yeah, because
it's me, oh my God. It was like
it's like you gave up.
Oh no, I'm literally known in my family as the person that tries things and then stops and switches to something else. But I'm like, at least I'm trying things. Like why are you coming after me? I'm like, I'm not stuck in something. I'm not just freaking doing something because, shit I already started it. Now I have to stick with it. Like I feel like that's really a thing. I just don't agree with it. I feel like everyone should try everything and then decide what you want to do.
100%. I saw TikTok the other day, and that's like my whole personality now. It's just like TikToks I saw, but I saw one.
Me. I saw TikTok the other day. That's how all my conversations with Manny go. Maybe so I was watching TikTok the other
Literally
day.
me, like at work even. I'm like, hey guys, I saw a TikTok. Like they even make fun of me because that's all I say. But I saw one that was really cool because it was like growing up, like our generation of like younger millennials, older Gen Z. I don't know what the fuck we are, but like our like specific generation is in this weird time where like we grow up with all those motivational like winners don't quit and quitters don't win. Like don't quit anything. You have to finish what you started. And it's like I think winners know when to call it quits. Like when you're not happy. A real loser, like in quotations, is someone who does something just for the sake of doing it, even though they hate it. Like that's not the life I want to live. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's like it's knowing when it's time to call it quits.
Exactly. There's obviously a difference between not even trying at all and saying like, oh, fuck this, I'm not going to challenge myself. But then like pushing into when you're miserable and burning yourself out and like for what, It's just...
Yeah, what is that?
I think that was Pete screaming in his video game. So sorry if you guys hear that in the background.
I love that. What video game is he playing? Because I'm such a gamer.
He really likes Valorant. Oh, he really likes Valorant, and I think he plays Apex with some of his friends too. Those are like the big ones.
He's a Twitcher? No, that's not how you say that.
I don't even know how you say it. But yeah, he I don't know if he's been doing it as much recently, but he was doing Twitch a lot. I was like, he was twitching a lot in Washington.
I was like, is that what it's called? I really don't know the proper term for that.
Me either. Look at us. We're so hip.
I feel like I'm like such a wannabe Gen Z.
Same.
I'm like have my foot in.
Like I'm not cool at all. I feel like what's the word? Like chuggy? I feel like I'm so chuggy.
No, you're not. Maria has also great style. Every time I go out with her and I see her, I'm like, why are you just like effortlessly stylish? Oh my God, like actually.
It's not effortless at all. I'm like, what do I
She's like on Pinterest before.
Yeah, like, what do I wear?
Wait, so I did also want to, before we have to end the pod because we're running out of time. I know you moved. Okay, so you moved to Washington.
Yes.
How long were you there?
We were there for like a year and a half. Yeah. a year and a half.
Oh, damn, that's a long
It was
time.
a while, yeah.
How is it different? Because I'm so curious. Because I hear like Washington's just like a completely different like place compared to, I mean, Florida is just Florida,
Dude,
but
yeah. It
I'm like,
is
that must have been like a culture shock.
100%. So like in terms of nature, it's by far the most beautiful place I've ever been. Like incredible. Like literally just driving on the highway is like an activity. Like I can't even describe. The biggest misconception is that it's always rainy. It's only that rainy in like the late fall to winter. Like spring and summer there. Sorry, Pete screamed again. Spring and summer there are like amazing. Every day sunny, like no more than 80 degrees, like paradise. And it has everything. It has desert, mountains, beaches. Like it's just, oh my God, like beautiful. So that was amazing. The town that we were in was about an hour-ish out of Seattle. It was a really small, tiny, it was pretty much a suburb of Olympia, but it was like a little far out. Like it's not even a town, dude. It was like 1,200 people, which like, insane.
Wow.
It was like a neighborhood, tiny. And that was weird. Like that was really weird because I always thought Washington was like a really like liberal state because I knew like Seattle and then like Portland and Oregon. But those little towns are strange places.
Like, oh gosh, that's kind of scary.
Different vibe. Everyone was super nice because it's like that small town feel, but it's just like weird pockets of extremely conservative areas in a really liberal state. So it's like a weird dynamic. Like even political opinions aside, it's just like a weird dynamic. And then like, so that was strange, but it was beautiful. Like, and the people were nice. It was just weird coming from Kissimmee to like that.
Oh, I can imagine. That's just like literally like a complete 180.
100%.
I just hate Florida now. I'm sorry.
No, dude, I'm allergic to Florida. It's funny because my whole life I was like, I don't have allergies. And then I left the East Coast in general. And now that I'm back, it's like, oh, I can only ever breathe out of one nostril, like at any given time. Like,
oh, so that's rough. Like Manny. The pollen is insane.
It's so bad.
Yeah. I can't. I literally was telling Manny yesterday, I was like, I don't know what like we're gonna have to do to like buy a house here, but like no one is kicking me out of here. Like I'm loving it. I'm like addicted to California. Like I hate myself because I'm now that person. It's like California is so beautiful, but I can like I'm just obsessed. I'm like I cannot leave.
I cannot leave. It. It's like so your vibe.
You always told me that.
Yes.
You were like, you need to go. You would love it. Well, now I'm here and I can't leave. No one can make me leave. Do you want to promote yourself? You can promote yourself on here. We have 31 listeners.
Hi,
officially.
Listeners. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. This was amazing. Like, you're both so incredible. This was such a pleasure to like talk to you. My Instagram is Maria E. Barbera. I had a blog.
Put your plug in
quarantine when I had spare time, which is not a thing anymore. But I'm working on writing stuff, and if it like when it comes to fruition, I'll post it on my Instagram. So if you want, give me a follow. Thanks.
Yes, and I want to see you on TikTok. I feel like you need to be on TikTok. Maria, I don't know what you're doing. I think I saw you post once, and I got really excited. Again, I never saw another video. I was posting
in quarantine. I feel like I'm really good at watching TikToks, but at like thinking of TikToks, like terrible trash. The whole time I'm like, this is like probably an anxiety thing, but I'm like, Gen Z's gonna tear me apart. Like I'm not cool enough to like.
Oh, they'll come for you. They literally came for me multiple times already, but it's fine.
Well, I'm gonna follow you because I feel like I already made a new friend.
100%.
So I'm definitely gonna, let you know, see if you want to come on the blog at least and maybe write something there. I feel like you have a lot to share. So, and it really aligns with like, my whole vision and all that. So that's awesome. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. We appreciate you spending time to talk about your personal life because, I'm very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, when people don't need to share their like personal lives, so it's like we need to take that into like consideration because not everyone should feels comfortable or should be doing it or whatever the case is. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, and we totally appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I loved this. This was so much fun.
Yay!
Awesome.
I love you.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See you guys next Friday.